Okay, guys. So today I'm going to talk about a story, about a Christmas story. All right. So I hope you will like my story for today's afternoon. All right. So today's story, the title is "The Poor Relation Story." All right. So if you're ready, guys, we will continue to our story. Okay, let's get started. Um, he was very reluctant to take precedence, so many respected members of the family. By beginning the round of stories, they were to relate as they sat in a goodly circle by the Christmas fire. And he modestly suggested that it would be more correct if John, our esteemed host, whose health he begged to drink, would have the kindness to begin. For as to himself, he said, he was so little used to lead the way that really. But as they all cried out here, that he must begin and agree with one voice, that he might could, would and should begin, he left off rubbing his hands, and took his legs out from under his armchair, and did begin. "I have no doubt," said the poor relation, "that I shall surprise the assembled members of our family, and particularly John, our esteemed host, to whom we are so much indebted for the great hospitality with which he has this day entertained us. By the confession I am going to make, but if you do me the honor to be surprised at anything that falls from a person so unimportant in the family as I am, I can only say that I shall be scrupulously accurate in all I relate. I am not what I am supposed to be. I am quite another thing. Perhaps before I go further, I had better glance at what I am supposed to be. It is supposed, unless I mistake. The assembled members of our family will correct me if I do, which is very likely. Here the poor relation looked mildly about him for contradiction. That I am nobody's enemy but my own, that I never met with any particular success in anything, that that I failed in business because I was unbusinesslike, scrupulous in not being prepared for the interested design of my partner, that I failed in love because I was ridiculously trustful in thinking it possible that Christiana could deceive me, that I failed in my expectations from my Uncle Jill, on account of not being as sharp as he could have wished in worldly matters, that through life I have been rather put upon and disappointed in a general way, that I am not at present a bachelor of between 59 and 60 years of age, living on a limited income in the form of quarterly allowance, so which I see that John, our esteemed host, wishes me to make no further allusion. The supposition as to my present pursuits and habits is the following effect. I live in a lodging in the Clapham Road, a very clean back room in a very respectable house, where I am expected not to be at home in the daytime, unless poorly, and which I usually leave in the morning at 9 o'clock, on pretense of going to business. I take my breakfast, my roll and butter, and my half pint of coffee at the old established coffee shop near Westminster Bridge, and then I go into the city. I don't know why. I sit in the Garwitz coffee house and on change and walk about and look into a few offices and counting houses where some of my relations or acquaintances are so good as to tolerate me, and where I stand by the fire if the weather happens to be cold. I get through the day in this way after 5 o'clock, and then I dine at the cost of the average of 1 and 3 pence, having still in a little money to spend on my evening's entertainment. I look into the old established coffee shop as I go home, and I take my cup of tea and perhaps my bit of toast. So as the large hand of the clock makes its way round to the morning hour again, I make my way around to Clapham Road again, and go to bed when I get to my lodging, fire being expensive, and being objective to buy family, for the family, or rather by the family on account of its giving trouble and making a dirt. Sometimes one of my relations or acquaintances is so obliging as to ask me to dinner. Those are holiday occasions, and then I generally walk in the park. I am a solitary man and seldom walk with anybody. Not that I am avoided because I am a shabby, for I am not a shabby at all. I am not at all shabby. Having always a very good suit of having, or rather, having always a very good suit of black on, or rather Oxford mixture, which has the appearance of black and wears much better. But I have got into a habit of speaking low and being rather silent, and my spirits are not high. I am sensible that I am not an attractive companion. The only exception to this general rule is the child my first cousin, little Frank. I have a particular affection for that child. He takes very kindly to me. He is a diffident boy by nature. In a crowd, he is soon run over, as I may say, and forgotten. He and I, however, get on exceedingly well. I have a fancy that poor child will in time succeed to my peculiar position in the family. He took but little. Still, we understand each other. We walk about hand in hand, and without much speaking he knows what I mean, and I know what he means. He was very little indeed. I used to take him to the windows of the toy shops and show him the toys inside. It is surprising how soon he found out that I would have made him a great many presents if I had been circumstances to do it. Little Frank and I go and look at the outside of the monument. He is very fond of the monument, and the bridges and all the sights are free. And on two of my birthdays, we have tied on a lamont beef and gone a half price to the play. I've been deeply interested. I was once walking with him in Lombard Street, which we often visit on account of my having mentioned to him that there are great riches there. He is very fond of Lombard Street. When a gentleman said to me he was passed by, "Sir, Your little son has dropped his glove. I assure you, if you will excuse my remarking on so trivial circumstance. This accident mention of the child was mine, quite touched my heart and brought the foolish tears into my eyes. When little Frank is sent to school in the country, I shall be very much at a loss what to do with myself. But I have the intention of walking down there once a month and seeing him in a half holiday. I am told he will then be at a play upon the heath, and if my visit should be objected to, as a settling the child, I can see him from a distance without his seeing me. I look back again. His mother comes of a highly gentle family and rather disapproves. I am aware of our being too much together. I know that I am not calculated to improve his retiring disposition, but I think he would miss me behind the feeling of the moment if we were wholly separated. When I die in the Clapham Road, I shall not leave much more in this world that I shall take out of it. But I happen to have a miniature of a bright-faced boy with a curling head and an open shirt frill waving down his bosom. My mother had it taken for me, but I can't believe that it was ever like, which will be worth nothing to sell, and which I shall beg may he given to Frank. I have eaten, my dear boy, a little letter with it, in which I have told him that I felt very sorry to part from him, though bound to confess that I know no reason why I should remain here. I have given him some short advice, the best in my power, to take warning to the consequences of being nobody's enemy but his own. And I have endeavored to comfort him for what I fear he will consider a bereavement, by pointing out to him that I was only superfluous something to very one but him, and that having by some means failed to find a place in this great assembly, I am better out of it. Such, said the poor relation, clearing his throat, beginning to speak a little louder, in this general impression about me. Now, it is remarkable circumstance which form the aim and purpose of my story, that is this all wrong. This is not my life, and these are not my habits. I do not even live in Clapham Road. Comparatively speaking, I am very seldom there. I reside mostly in I am most ashamed to say the word. It sounds so full of pretension, in a castle. I do not mean that it is an old baronial habitation, but still it is a building always known to every one by the name of a castle. In it, I preserve the particulars of my story. They run thus. I was, when I first took John Spatters, who had been my clerk, into partnership, and when I still a young man of not more than 25, residing in the house of my uncle Theo, from whom I had considerable expectations that I have ventured to propose to Christiana. I had loved Christiana a long time. She was very beautiful and very winning in all respects. I'd rather mistrusted her. rather mistrusted her widowed mother, who I feared was of a plotting and mercenary turned mind. But I thought as well of her as I could. For Christiana's sake, I never had loved anyone but Christiana, and she had been all the world, and oh, far more than all the world, to me from our childhood. Christiana accepted me with her mother's consent, and I was rendered very happy indeed. My life and my Uncle Chill's was all a spare dull kind, and my garret chamber was dull, what was as dull, and bare and cold as an upper prison room in some stern northern fortress. But having Christiana's love, I wanted nothing upon earth. I would not have changed my lot with any human being. Avarice was unhappy, my Uncle Chill's master vice. Though he was rich, he pinched and cramped and clenched and lived miserably. As Christiana had no fortune, I was for some time a little fearful of confusing our engagement to him. But at length, I wrote him a letter, saying how it all truly was. I put it into his hand one night and going to bed. As I came downstairs next morning, shivering in the cold December air, colder in Uncle's unwarmed house than in the street, where the winter sun did sometimes shine, and which was at all events enlivened by cheerful faces and voices passing along. I carried a heavy heart towards the long, low breakfast room in which my uncle sat. It was a large room with a small fire, and there was a great bay window in it, which the rain had marked in the night as if with the tears of houseless people. It stared upon a raw yard, with a cracked stone pavement, and some rusted iron railings rough uprotted. Once an ugly outbuilding, but had once been this dissecting room in the time of the great surgeon who had mortgaged the house to my uncle, stared at it. We rose so early always that at the time of the year we breakfasted by candlelight. When I went into the room, my uncle was contracted by the cold, and so cuddled together in his chair behind a dim candle that I did not see him until I was close to the table. As I held out my hand to him, he caught up his stick. Being infirm, he always walked about the house with a stick, and then made a blow at me and said, "You fool!" "Uncle," I returned, "I didn't expect you to be angry as this, nor I'd expected it." Though he was hard and angry old man. "You didn't expect?" said he. "When did you ever expect? When did you ever calculate or look forward, you contemptible dog?" "These are hard words, uncle." "Hard words? Feeders, to pelt such an idiot as you with," said he. "Here, Betsy Snap, look at him." Betsy Snap has a withered, hard-fevered, yellow old woman, our only domestic always employed. At this time of the morning, in rubbing my uncle's legs. As my uncle adjured her to look at me, he put his lean grip in the crown of her head, he kneeling beside him, and turned her face towards me. An involuntary thought connecting them both with the dissecting room, as it must often have been in the surgeon's time, passed across my mind in the midst of my anxiety. "Look at the sniveling milk shop," said my uncle. "Look at the baby. This is the gentleman who, people say, is nobody's enemy but his own. This is the gentleman who can't say no. This is the gentleman who was making such a large profit in his business that he must needs to take a partner that other day. This is the gentleman who is going to marry a wife without a penny, and who falls into the hands of Jezebels, who are speculating on my death. I know now how great my uncle's rage was, for nothing short of his being at most beside him would have induced him to utter that concluding word, which he held in such repugnance that it was never spoken or hinted at before him on any account. "On my death," he repeated, as if he were defying me by defying his own adherence of the word. "On my death, 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 but I'll spoil the speculation. Eat your last under this roof, you feeble witch, and it choke you. You may suppose that I have not much appetite for the breakfast to which I was bidden in these terms, but I took my accustomed seat. I saw that I was curated henceforth by my uncle. Still I could bear that very well, possessing Christiana's heart. He emptied his basin of bread and milk as usual, only he took on his knees with his chair turned away from the table where I sat. When I had done, he carefully snuffed out the candle, and the cold, slate-colored, miserable day looked in upon us. "Now, Mr. Michael," said he, "before we part, I should like to have a word with these ladies in your presence." "As you will, sir," I returned. "But you deceived yourself and wrong us cruelly if you suppose that there is only feeling at stake in this contract but pure, disinterested, faithful love." To this he only replied, "You lie," and not one other word. He went through half-thawed snow and half-frozen rain to the house where Christiana and her mother lived. My uncle knew them very well. They were sitting at their breakfast and were surprised to see us at that hour. "Your servant, ma'am," said my uncle to the mother. "You divine the purpose of my visit, I dare say, ma'am. I understand there is a word of pure, disinterested, faithful love cooked up here. I am happy to bring it all at once, to make it complete. I'm happy to bring it all, to make it complete. I bring your own son-in-law, ma'am, and you, your husband, miss." The gentleman is perfect, stranger to me, but I wish him joy for his wise bargain. He stared at me as he went out, and I never saw him again. It is altogether a mistake, continued the poor relation, to suppose that my dear Christiana, over-persuaded and influenced by her mother, married a rich man, the dirt from whose carriage swells is often, in these changed times, thrown upon me as she rides by. No, no, she married me. The way she came to be married rather sooner than we intended was this. I took a frugal lodging and was saving and planning for her sake. When one day she spoke to me with great earnestness and said, "My dear Michael, I have given you my heart. I have said that I loved you, and I have pledged myself to be your wife. I am as much yours through all changes of good and evil as we had been married on the day when such word passed between us. I know you well, and know that if we should be separated and our union broken off, your whole life would be shadowed in all that might, even now, be stronger in your character, for the conflict with the word would then be weakened to the shadow of what it is." "God help me, Christiana," said I. "You speak the truth." "Michael," said she, putting her hand in mine in all maidenly devotion, "let us keep apart no longer. It is but for me to say that I can live contented upon such means as you have. I will know you are happy. I say so from my heart. I strive no more alone. Let us strive together. My dear Michael, it is not right, but I should keep secret from you what you not suspect. But what distresses my whole life, my mother, without considering that what you have lost for me, and on the assurance of my faith, sets her heart on riches and urges another suit upon me to my misery. I cannot bear this, for to bear it is to be untrue to you. I would rather share your struggles than look on. I want to better home that you can give me. I know that you will aspire and labor with higher courage if I am wholly yours, and let it be so be you will." I was blessed indeed. The day a new world opened to me. We were married in a very little while, and I took my wife to our happy home. That was the beginning of the residence I have spoken of, the castle we have ever since inhabited together. Dates from the time all our children have been born in it. Our first child, now married, was a little girl, whom we called Christiana. Her son is so like little Frank, and I hardly know which is which. The current impression as to my partner's dealings with me is always quite erroneous. He did not begin to treat me coldly, as a poor simpleton, when my uncle and I so fatally quarreled, nor did we did he afterwards gradually possess himself of our business and edge me out. On the contrary, he behaved to me with the utmost good faith and honor. Matters between us took this turn. On the day of my separation from my uncle, even before the arrival of our counting house of matrons, which we sent after me, had carried spade, I went down to our room of business on our little wharf, overlooking the river, and there I told John's father that had happened. John did not say in reply that rich old relatives were palpable facts, and that love and sentiment were moonshine and fiction. He addressed me thus. "Michael," said John, "we were at school together. I generally had the knack of getting on better than you, and making a higher reputation. You had, John," I returned. "Although," said John, "I borrowed you books and lost them, borrowed your pocket money and never repaid it, got you to buy damaged knives at a higher price that I have given for them new, and to own to the windows that I had broken. All not worth mentioning, John's father," said I, "but certainly true. When you were first established in this infant business, were promises to thrive so well pursued too. I came to you in my search for almost any employment, and you made me more clerk. Still not worth mentioning, my dear John's father," said I, still equally true, and finding that I had a good head for business, and that I was really useful to the business, you did not like to retain me in the capacity, and thought in act of justice soon to make me your partner. Still less worth mentioning than any of those rather little circumstances you have recalled, John's father," said I, "for I was and am sensible of your merits in my defenses." "Now, my good friend," said John, throwing my arm through this as he had habit of doing at school, while two vessels outside the windows of our counting houses, which were shaped like the stern windows of a ship, went lightly down the river with the tide, as John and I might be sailing away in the company, and in trust, in confidence, in our voyage of life. Let there, under these friendly circumstances, be right understanding between us. You are too easy, Michael. You are nobody's enemy but your own. If I were to give you that damaging character among our connections, with a shrug and a shake of the head and sigh, and I were further to abuse the trust you place in me. But you never will abuse it all, John, I observed. "Never," said he, "but I am putting a case, I say, if I were further to abuse the trust by keeping this piece of our common affairs in the dark, and this other piece in the light, and again this other piece in the twilight, and so on, I should strengthen my strength and weaken our weakness, day by day, until at last I found myself on the high road to fortune, and you left behind some bare common and hopeless number of miles out of the way. Exactly so, said I. To prevent this, Michael, said John's father, or the remotest chance of this, there must be a perfect openness between us. Nothing must be concealed, and we must have but your interests. My dear John's father, I assured him, that is precisely what I mean. And when you are too easy, pursued John, his face glowing with friendship, you must allow me to prevent the imperfection in your nature from being taken advantage of. By 81, you must not expect me to humor it. My dear John's father, I interrupted. I don't expect you to humor it. I want to correct it. And I too, said John. Exactly so, cried I. We both have the same end in view, and honorable seeking it, and fully trusting one another, and having but one interest, ours will be prosperous and happy partnership. I am sure of it, returned John's father, and we shook hands most affectionately. I took John home to my castle, and we had a very happy day. Our partnership throve well. My friend and partner supplied what I wanted, as I had foreseen that he would, and by providing both the business and myself, amply acknowledge any little rise in life, so to which I have helped him. I am not, said the poor relation, looking at the fire as he slowly rubbed his hands, very rich, for I never scared to be that, but I have enough, and I'm above all moderate one's anxieties. My castle is not a splendid place, but is a very comfortable, and it has a warm, cheerful air, and is quite picture of home. Our eldest girl, who is very like her mother, married John's father's eldest son. Our two families are closely united in other ties of attachment. It is very pleasant of an evening when we are all assembled together, which frequently happens, and when John and I took over old times in the one interest there has always been between us. I really do not know in my castle what loneliness is. Some of our children or grandchildren are always about it. The young voices of my descendants are delightful. Oh, how delightful to me to hear. My dearest and most devoted wife, ever faithful, ever loving, ever helpful, and sustaining and consoling, is the priceless blessing of my house, from whom all its other blessings spring. We are rather a musical family, and when Christiana sees me at any time a little weary or depressed, she steals the piano and sings a general air she used to sing when we were first departed. So weak a man am I that I cannot bear to hear it from other source. They played it once at the theater when I was there with little pranks, and the child said, wondering, "Cousin Michael, whose hot tears are these that are falling on my hands?" Such is my castle, and such are real particulars of my life therein preserved. I often take little prank home there. He is very welcome to my grandchildren, and they play together. And this time of the year, the Christmas, in New Year time, I am seldom out of my castle. For the associations of the seasons seem to hold me there, and the precepts of the seasons seem to teach me that it is well to be there. And the castle is, observed a grave, kind of voice among the company. Yes, my castle, said the poor relation, shaking his head as he still looked at the fire. He is in the air. Tone our esteemed host suggests its situation accurately. My castle is in the air. I have done. Will you be so good as to pass the story? Okay, so guys, that's our story for today. Okay, it's about it's about the poor relation story. Okay, so this is my first time of having a storytelling live. So I hope you will like my live here in YouTube. Thank you so much, and see you again tomorrow.